Now at 6 o'clock, we are just a few hours away from a federal court hearing to decide if it's legal to deploy the National Guard to Portland.
Plus, we now know the identities of the 3 people Portland police arrested late last night near the Portland's ICE facility along the south waterfront. We have team coverage this morning on both of these stories and more coming up in just a few minutes. But first, Rod and Chris have a quick look at weather and traffic.
And my quick look begins with a fog advisory. I have an impact alert for dense fog, meaning reduced visibility as you are making your way to work or wherever this morning up through 10 a.m. The worst of the fog is where you see the quarter of a mile, 0.25 visibility in Hillsborough, McMinnville. So clearly this is fog that's worse on the west side currently than the east side, but we're starting to see the visibility drop somewhat into downtown Portland as well. Bad fog down in Salem this morning. Newport's been reporting fog. You can just see the bottom of the state capitol. So you folks driving into Salem or driving out of Salem this morning, that is reduced visibility, certainly all the way down to ground level. Here is a little bit better because you can see I-5 is pretty clean, but the fog is down into the cityscape of the Rose City. So our bus stop weather. Foggy mornings can produce a little bit of mist or drizzle out there, so maybe a light, repellent jacket on as well. 54 on average out the door. By noon, the fog is over, and it's a partly cloudy, nice afternoon. It'll be about 66 when the kids get out of school. Here's Chris.
Ron, thanks for that. It seems like as you get just a smidge above the valley floor is where you hit the fog, right? Because as we look down near the interstate bridge at I-5 at SR 14, no problems there, right? Traffic, by the way, is zipping along just fine. But as we switch gears and take you up to the Ridgefield area, the fog becomes a little bit more widespread. As you see the, not Ridgefield, excuse me, this is up in Salmon Creek, right at the I-5-205 split. So fog, the story for the morning commute so far. So far, light volume, no major freeway trouble, and we are getting around at a speed limit clip for now. Drew, China.
All right, thank you, Chris. Let's get back to our top story this morning. The National Guard's expected arrival here in Portland.
Yeah, we have team coverage this morning, including Corey Johnson breaking down the arrest that happened just last night outside the South Waterfront ICE facility. But first, we want to go to Thomas Schultz, live outside the Oregon Department of Justice, because in just 4 hours, the state of Oregon will ask a federal judge to pause that deployment. Thomas, what more do we know here?
Yeah, guys, though, we also just learned that a new judge will hear the case just hours before that hearing is set to happen. This comes after the feds filed a motion asking that Judge Michael Simon recuse himself from the case to avoid the appearance of partiality. Simon is married to Oregon Congresswoman Suzanne Bonamici. On Saturday, Bonamici spoke out against President Trump's deployment of 200 Oregon National Guard troops into federal service for 60 days.
This is a gross abuse of power by the president. He does not have the authority to send military troops to a city.
Lewis and Clark law professor Tung Yin says judges often do recuse themselves if there's an obvious conflict of interest, something like stock ownership or a close relationship to a party involved. But he says asking a judge to step off a case can be a slippery slope.
Kind of dangerous. You know the saying, you come at the king, you better not miss. If you file a recusal motion, you're basically laying out to the judge the idea that I don't think you can be fair.
Now, yesterday afternoon, the case was reassigned to Judge Karen Immergitt, who is a Trump appointee. There's still a lot of questions that are not answered before this hearing scheduled at 10 o'clock this morning. We don't know how the new judge will decide. We also don't know when a decision could happen. It could happen during the hearing today. It could happen later today, or frankly, whenever she feels like she's ready to release a decision. Drew, China.
All right, Thomas Schultz live for us this morning there in downtown Portland. While we wait for the outcome of that hearing, we're also tracking the nightly protests happening outside Portland's ICE facility. Last night's protests led to arrests, and we now know the names of the people taken into custody.
So it happened after an apparent agitator appeared to get in the faces of some of the demonstrators, which a KGW crew witnessed. Sunrise reporter Corey Johnson joins us live from the ICE facility in South Portland with the details. Corey.
That's right, Drew, China. Within just the last 5 hours, Portland police announced the arrest of 49-year-old Angela Davis of Vernonia, 27-year-old Nicholas Sorter of Washington, D.C., and 43-year-old Son Min Yi of Portland on disorderly conduct charges. Now, our crews saw law enforcement detain 3 people Thursday night after an apparent altercation. Now, the arrest happened after a small group of people were peacefully protesting outside the facility, and an apparent agitator agitator appeared to get in some of the faces of the demonstrators. Law enforcement officers were then seen arresting 3 people. Then, while federal officers pushed back the crowd to allow several vehicles to exit the facility, KGW was told one person was sprayed in the eyes with mace. KGW also spoke with some protesters who say they came out to counter the narrative.
The idea that this is even national news is already kind of silly. The idea that it's treated as a national threat is absolutely bonkers crazy.
Now, the Portland Police Bureau posted on X that it does not engage in immigration enforcement, but is still responsible for maintaining public safety and enforcing state laws. Drew, China.
All right, Corey Johnson live for us this morning there near the South Waterfront. Meanwhile, Washington County detectives have identified the human remains that were found in the Tualatin River this summer. A kayaker discovered body parts near Rood Bridge Park on August 8th, and more were found the next day as well. Investigators confirmed they were the remains of 34-year-old Ezekiel Avila Ruiz, who was last seen in Hillsborough on July 31st. Detectives believe he was the victim of a homicide and are asking anyone with information to come forward.
Meantime, the Trump administration has canceled nearly $8 billion in funding for clean energy projects. Oregon and Washington combined are losing more than $1 billion in federal funding. According to a list from the office of Congresswoman Maxine Dexter, the cuts will impact the Oregon Department of Energy and energy projects from PGE. Another project filling the cuts is a Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub, a public-private partnership to help the United States move away from fossil fuels. They say that they're losing out on $1 billion from the federal government.
So we are having to determine, can these projects still go forward? Do the economics work for these projects any longer? And it's unclear.
Washington state officials condemned the cut, saying that it will terminate more than $1 billion from the state's 11 federally funded energy projects. Washington Governor Bob Ferguson says that they are working with an attorney to, quote, fight this illegal action.
All right, we have a big race here in Portland this weekend. The Portland Marathon takes over city streets on Sunday, and the resident runner here on the Sunrise Show, Chris McGinnis, gets us ready with a look at this year's course and the race's traffic impacts.
3, 2, 1.
On Sunday, an estimated 12,000 runners will hit the streets for the annual Portland Marathon.
The running community in Portland is so amazing. There's so much support, welcoming people of all abilities and all paces.
For Seth Buckwalter, who leads a local run club, the race is about setting goals, no matter the distance.
The most exciting thing about Sunday is having 12,000 people down in the waterfront registering. They're showing up, they're trying to finish, and they're trying to break PRs.
As always, the marathon course crosses the Broadway, Burnside, and Selwood bridges. TriMet says 20 bus routes will have slight detours, and the race also crosses the Max line at 4 locations, meaning some riders could see some slight delays from 5 a.m. until the race wraps up. This year's marathon also unfolds with Portland in the national spotlight after the president's decision to send National Guard troops into the city.
You know, I think there's a lot of talk surrounding Portland. It's coming back. We're having a really great, we're feeling very safe.
I'm just really hoping that we end this marathon with everyone just being safe, feeling good, and, you know, everyone having a great time.
Still, runners say focus is on community and celebration.
It's really a day for celebration, what people have looked up to all this time.
So Sunday, I am running the Portland Full Marathon, and I'm pretty stoked about it.
And if you've ever known anyone who's run a marathon, they are all about their marathon until race day, and then they can't walk the next day or two. All right, so the event itself includes a half marathon, a 10K, and a kids fun run, which all starts and finishes downtown near the downtown Portland waterfront. It loops through dozens of Portland neighborhoods, and it crosses 3 Portland bridges. So the most impactful of that will be a full closure of the Broadway Bridge from 6:30 to 9 a.m. and the westbound lane of the Selwood Bridge. That'll be closed from 6:30 until 10:45. The Water Avenue ramp to the Hawthorne Bridge will also be closed from 7:30 to 1:30 p.m. Good luck to all the runners out there, guys.
All right, Chris, thank you for that. You know, last hour I asked China and Rod, would you rather jump out of a plane with a parachute or run a marathon? You said you would go with the marathon. You don't want to jump from a plane. Yeah. Rod said he could not. He just physically could not do the marathon. Yeah. So he would have to be pushed from the plane. Yeah. New question this hour.
Yes.
I was thinking of a tattoo situation. Oh, so would you rather, if you had a choice, would you rather get a tattoo that says Drew's cool Now, it doesn't have to be like on your forehead or on your cheek. That would be ridiculous. But would you rather get a tattoo that says Drew's Cool on your upper shoulder or run the Portland Marathon?
Run the Portland Marathon.
Thank you.
Your name will never be permanent on my body. Ever!
I mean, there's no way I would finish, but I would rather give the marathon a try. Yeah.
Oh! Whoa! So, but to put them in order, you would go jump out of a plane.
Yes.
Portland Marathon.
Yes.
Drew tattoo.
Yes.
And I would run the Portland Marathon, and I have 11 tattoos.
All right. Anyways, I love you guys too. Rod, what's the forecast look like?
I mean, the only thing about the jumping out of the plane, the landing can be a little tricky, right? But the rest of it's a piece of cake. All right, 53 degrees out there currently. We have a dense fog advisory in play. This is up and down I-5 in our entire region. We've had visibility go under a quarter of a mile at times in different spots, so reduced visibility is problematic for the morning commute potentially. The red is the impact alert for that up through about 10 o'clock this morning. By noon, the fog is all gone and it will be a nice, partly cloudy, pleasant afternoon. We'll get up to about 68 degrees. Sun up this morning, 7:12, so we're just coming up on 60 minutes away from that. Here's the latest visibility map. So for the past half hour, the worst of the fog has been over on the west side, where you see a quarter of a mile visibility in Scappoose, Hillsborough, and McMinnville. Salem's had bad visibility as well, with dense fog being reported. There's that 0.25. That's the definition of dense fog, quarter of a mile or less of visibility. And here's the Oregon Zoo. I showed you this in the last half hour, and it wasn't bad, but now it's definitely foggy. That's the main entrance walkway, 600 feet up in the West Hills, our live camera at the zoo. Temperatures, 54 at PDX. Forest Grove now down to 46. Sherwood now down to 47. And if anything, dropping temperatures typically will worsen the fog. There's Dallas at 45, Albany at 50. Salem, your temperature is down a degree and your fog has worsened in the past half hour or so. Later today, though, it's all about mainly dry weather, partly cloudy skies, generally 60s. The only measurable shower threat today is out across the southeastern corner of our state. 7-day forecast, still eyeing that threat of a shower overnight tonight and tomorrow, but tomorrow still looks to be mainly dry to me. And then Sunday, we could wake up to clear skies. Maybe there's some early clouds, but overall, I would expect the runners to be under a blue, sunny sky Sunday morning, and that is your update.